Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this hump day. It's Wednesday, of course, and wow, the markets just continue to be absolutely incredible. Yesterday, to see the Dow down, call it 700 points, only to make an absolute unbelievable pivot off of those lows to shoot up to the highs of the day, actually getting into the territory of being in green, but finishing the day down 60 points. That is an absolutely extraordinary move once again. And we're saying that day after day after day. And January has certainly delivered on the idea of, hey, look, you want some volatility? We've got it. These markets are absolutely on fire with volatility. The movement has been unbelievable. We had a couple of huge days of volumes. If you look at Friday and Monday, Tuesday, we did slow down a little bit. We only had about 39 million contracts trading yesterday, which is surprising given the kind of move that we had. Now, you look over at the NASDAQ, it was a little bit different. It was a much bumpier ride on that downside. Never really got that violent move to the upside that we were seeing out of the Dow itself. But it did bounce around. It did have a little bit of a pop. It did sell off a little bit and then finish the day down over 300 points to the downside. So certainly some pressure on the NASDAQ yesterday, but we look over at the Dow and it's just an absolutely amazing recovery. And that started fairly early and then accelerated only to decelerate towards the end of the day. So volatility, yeah, we've got some. We were 29 to 36 on the volatility. That was the range of the VIX yesterday. First of all, that's a big range. Second of all, getting up again towards 36 really does say a lot about the kind of markets and the kind of movements that we are having. However, we did close closer to that lower end, around 31 or so. So up about 4% on the day. And volatility is certainly something that is here. You look over at crude, you get back over 85. You look at the 10-year, still not quite at 1.8, but above that 1.75, call it a 1.78 level where the 10-year is. But when you look at what was going on yesterday within the sectors themselves, energy finished strong, finished very, very strong. Obviously, you look over at crude and you see that, and you see how some of these energy names, as a matter of fact, Chevron had an absolutely extraordinary day yesterday. You look over at some of those beta names within energy, call it the XOP, if you want to look at the big swath and take a look at all the components of the XOP. Those are the names that we bring up oftentimes. We talk about that beta, of course. Apache or APA, Occidental, Halliburton, MRO. You look at Devon, all of those names having a really, really strong day, 6% or more on the day on that move to the upside. American Express had a very, very solid performance of a day. Now, there were a lot of losers, certainly dragging things on the market. You take a look over at GE, that was down about 6%. Semiconductors, names like Marvell and Xilinx and ASML, all getting pulled to the downside. Datadog, a lot of those names that do have that very high PE are still the names that are very much in a struggle within the markets themselves. Okta, another one of these names, Zscaler, you get the idea. Palo Alto Networks. Now, when you look at something like a Salesforce, that was down about 3% as well. That's been a name that, it's a great name, quality name, but does have a little bit different multiple than when we're looking at some of these other names that we talk about frequently. And even some of those names might have a slightly stretched multiple. So you can obviously see when you really have that stretched multiple, those are the names that people are coming after. But it was across the board. Technology was hit, semiconductors were hit, industrials, materials down about 1% apiece. Then you look over at some of the communication services down about 2.25 or so. You get the idea. There was plenty of selling and a lot of that on the NASDAQ side of things. So you come into today, we had the Microsoft earnings last night. Everybody was excited because they initially were hit pretty hard, pretty dramatically hard to the downside. Then all of a sudden you come out, you listen to the call, and it sounds like everything was really good, not just good, actually maybe great. And that turned the stock immediately off of those lows, that sell-off lows in the post-market, and then that big move to the upside. So that was one of the names that certainly not only last night, but influencing the markets today. You look at the pre-market, you look at the Dow, it was up nearly 400 points, and NASDAQ up about 300 points. We have been all over the place already. I mean, we've been up as much as 500 points. We've pulled back and been up somewhere close to 250, 270 on the upside for the Dow. Same sort of a story, a little bit less volatile, quite honestly, with the NASDAQ, however. It's been bouncing around, certainly, but up about 300, up about 200, closer to that 250, 270 range for most of this first hour, but everything changes quick. John and I were just talking about that before I came on, just the you can just blink and you can see the markets absolutely shift to a different spot than they once were. You look at technology, that was up as high as 3% early on. That's pulled back closer to about a 2% gain. The SMH, that actually jumped from 2.75% to up about 4%, and then that started to pull back. You get the idea. We are seeing more and more of these big moves, both in both directions. This is not something that's just on the upside and then the pullbacks. We are seeing that each and every day, something just a little bit different. As a matter of fact, early on, just take a look at what was going on with energy. It was up, it was positive, just barely. Call it less than 0.25%. Next thing you know, it's up 1.5%. You blink and you look over at it once again, it's up about 0.8%. So it gives you an idea. That's the markets that we are in right now. Crude trading anywhere between 86 and 87. It could be 87 this moment, but it could pull right back off of that and be in the 86. So that's where we're seeing it right now. You do have a little bit of a drop in volatility. For how long? That's going to be an interesting one today. 28 to 29.60 so far today. We hadn't breached over 30 before I came on here, but we'll see. Obviously, if we start to see any consistent selling from where we were after that start of the day and where we were right before I came on, we certainly would be definitely going to be looking at that 30 once again level for the volatility index. So what are some of the areas that are seeing some of that strength today, at least a little bit early on? Texas Instruments, you got PayPal, obviously Microsoft. Corning, really, really big morning. That's that GLW. That's up about 12% today. Datadog having a solid reversal day as well. So you get the idea. A lot of big, nice movement. Penn National up about 6.5%. Some of the weakness that we're seeing out there are some of those safety names from yesterday and previous days. Names like Kimberly-Clark and Clorox and those names taking a little bit of a hit today after having been the go-to area for a lot of people for a day or two there as well. ADP down significantly, down about 8%. You got F5 as well, down about 10%. So there's definitely some movement within the markets themselves. So we got two unusuals, and I've got the halftime. We got a double-double today, because then I'm going to be on the 5 o'clock show today as well. But halftime show is going to be very interesting. Obviously, Microsoft will be a focal point, but a lot more than Microsoft, some great guests as well. XOM is number one. That one hit. $75 is about where the stock was trading at the time, called $75.50. We had a buyer of 10,000 of January 28th. Yeah, that's just a couple days from now. This has 3 days before expiration. Today, Thursday, Friday, that's it. So very, very short term. They're buying the 78 calls, 10,400 of those, 22 to 30 cents. We know the movement that we've seen in the energy space. We've seen it specifically recently out of names like Chevron and obviously some of those beta names. Exxon's had a great performance as well. Will Exxon make a move like this? Somebody seems to think so. They're buying these calls to the upside. Next, I've got Jets. Now, this is day 2 of that. And we have seen over the last couple of trading sessions, we have seen more and more activity in this airline ETF, JETS. And it's been really, really interesting to see the volumes that have come into that one. So once again today, not as big as yesterday, but we got a buyer who's going out in time. That's also been unusual, right? So 6,000 of the May 2486 calls. Yeah, they've got a lot of funky digits on some of their calls. The 2486 calls, 6,000 of those in May going for about 55 cents. Now we have had, as I say, multiple hits in this, and it seems like there's just this pattern of very big active activity and buying a little bit of time as part of the story as well here. So something to keep in mind with the Jets. Folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you at the halftime. Be safe, be smart. A lot going on in this markets are going to be volatile. Definitely, absolutely understand what the risks are of whatever your portfolio might be so that you can be in front of that as well. Folks, have a great day of trading.